Welcome back to Films Recapped. Today I will show you a science fiction and action film from 2014, called Edge of Tomorrow. Warning: spoilers ahead. Watch out and enjoy. The film starts with a series of newscasts from across the world. All are talking about a meteor hitting Hamburg, European evacuation, and an attack from outer space. The aliens are called mimics because of their ability to mimic and predict the actions of humans. They have managed to take over nearly all the European mainland in a very short amount of time with virtually no resistance from humanity. Finally, after 5 years of fighting, the tone of the newscasts changes when it is reported that the people of Earth managed to secure their first win in Verdun, France. Things are still bleak, but now there is some hope. With a new type of technology, an international defense agency called the United Defense Force has created a type of war suit that soldiers can wear. With this new mech suit, a single soldier, Rita Vertosky, was able to kill hundreds of aliens in just one day of fighting. She is now being heralded as the Angel of Verdun. Major William Cage goes on air to talk about this new technology and to let the human race know that there is still hope. The aliens have not been able to advance further than the mainland of Europe, and for now, the United Kingdom remains free of them. In Britain, the UDF is planning a major invasion, called Operation Downfall, of the mainland. It involves invading on several different fronts and cooperation from the UDF, Russia, China, and several other nations. Cage, a public affairs officer from the United States, has been sent to work with General Brigham to sell Operation Downfall. However, the two have different ideas of what this means. Cage thinks it means selling the people on Brigham. He, however, tells Cage that he is to be on the French front lines with his camera crew. Cage has no combat experience and strongly objects to this, but Brigham is insistent and tells him that this is an order to be followed. Cage is dismissed, but before he leaves, he tells Brigham what he could do with his media literacy. He threatens to pin the blame for all the death and bloodshed on Brigham alone if Operation Downfall fails. Brigham tells Cage not to worry, that he won't be on the front lines after all. Relieved, Cage leaves Brigham's office, just to be arrested and knocked out for threatening a general. When he wakes up, Cage finds himself at Heathrow Airport, which has been turned into a military base since the alien invasion. He also wakes to find that he has been demoted from a major to a lowly private. Unsure about all this, Cage demands to be able to call his commanding officer in Washington, D.C., but is told that because of the impending invasion, there are to be no phone calls in or out of Heathrow. As of now, there's only one way out of the base, and that is towards France. With this demotion, he is assigned to the J Squad, a unit of misfits that is led by Master Sergeant Farrell. Brigham has arranged it so that everyone at Heathrow believes that Cage tried to desert to get out of combat the following day. This leads his new crew to immediately dislike him, and they are told by Farrell to keep an eye on him. To Cage's disappointment, he wakes up the next day to find that the invasion is still happening, and he will still be a part of it despite his lack of training. He suits up into his mech suit with a sense of unease as he watches the J Squad do the same with excitement. As they are loading up to cross the channel, they see that Rita Vertosky, the Angel of Verdun herself, is there with them to fight on the front lines. On the ride to France, the J Squad heckles Cage and tells him that he's on his own once they land. The landing, however, is a massive failure. Their ship is attacked and many of the J Squad are killed before they ever get a chance to touch down. Farrell and the rest of his team are killed soon after. The beach is pure chaos and Cage watches as humans die all around him, including Vertosky. A particularly large mimic comes after Cage, but he manages to kill it with a claymore mine. Unfortunately, he hurts himself in the process as well as gets himself completely covered in mimic blood. Cage lays on the beach dying, until he is jolted awake at Heathrow. He is greeted in the same manner by the same sergeant as before and lives through the same events as the previous morning. He tries to warn Farrell that the invasion will fail but is ignored. After experiencing another bad landing on the beach, he tries to save as many people as he can, using what he remembers from his first time on the beach, but is unsuccessful and he dies again. And again, he wakes up at Heathrow. This time around in his attempt to save everyone, Cage tells Farrell things about him and the other members of J Squad that Cage shouldn't know. Rather than listen to him, Cage is treated like a madman and ignored again. He relives these same events again, and again, and again. Each time doing something just a little different to try and change the course of events in favor of the humans. During one of his loops, Cage tries to save Vertosky. Rather than listen to him now, though, she lets herself die, but not before she cryptically tells him to find her when he wakes up. When his next loop starts, he does everything he can to get himself in front of Vertosky. Unlike everyone else, she believes him about the time loops. She tells him that she has had the same thing happen to her before the Battle of Verdun, but she lost the ability. She takes Cage to Dr. Carter, who is an expert in mimic biology. Carter explains that the mimics aren't individuals with individual thoughts, but should be thought of as a single organism. Most of the mimics are just grunts that can be thought of as the creature's claws. There are others, though, that are much less common. Carter calls these alphas and says that they can be equated to the mimic's central nervous system. It was one of these that Cage blew up in his first time through the battle. Finally, there is one last type of mimic. Carter calls it the Omega. This is the brain of the mimic. Carter claims that when an alpha is destroyed, the Omega is able to restart the day and adjust events until the mimics win. This is how they were able to so easily overtake the humans. Because Cage was covered in the alpha's blood, he accidentally gained the same ability. Vertovsky explains that the same thing happened to her at the Battle of Verdun. This is why she was able to be so successful during it. However, she lost the ability when she had to receive a blood transfusion. They warn him that as the loops continue on, Cage will start to get visions of the Omega as it searches for Cage. Now it is up to him to find the Omega so that Vertovsky can kill it, end the alien attacks, and save all of humanity. Over the course of several more loops, Vertovsky trains Cage to get him combat ready. In the meantime, Cage has started to have the visions that Vertovsky told him about. He sees the Omega inside a dam in Germany. He tells this to Vertovsky and Carter, and they tell him that training time is over. Now it's time to figure out how to get out of the battle and get to the Omega. Carter is eventually able to find the spot from Cage's visions, the Cunera Dam in Germany. Through dozens of loops and trying to get through the battle, the two eventually make it off the beach and into mainland France. Cage grows closer to her, but she is only interested in taking down the mimics. However, there comes a point in time where no matter what they try, Vertovsky dies. They try dozens of times to make it past a farmhouse in France, but every time leads to an argument and her death. Realizing that there's no way for Vertovsky to make it, Cage goes the next loop alone. He makes it to the farmhouse and flies in a helicopter to the dam by himself. He discovers that the Omega isn't actually there, and he is ambushed by an alpha. The mimics know that he has been siphoning their time powers and want to put a stop to it. Rather than let the alpha enact its plan, Cage intentionally drowns himself to make sure that the day starts over. On his next time through the loop, Cage finds Vertovsky again and the two make their way into the Ministry of Defense where they get a meeting with General Brigham. They manage to convince him to give them a prototype of a machine that Carter built. It can use the blood from an alpha, or Cage's blood in this case, to find the Omega. On their way out of the Ministry building, though, they are attacked and chased by the police. As Vertovsky drives them away, Cage uses the device and sees that the Omega is located in Paris underneath the Louvre. Unfortunately, Cage is critically injured during the car chase but isn't killed. When he wakes up he isn't at the beginning of his day at Heathrow, but is in a hospital. He has received medical care and a part of that was getting a blood transfusion, thus ending his time loop abilities. Much to Cage's surprise, Vertovsky isn't dead, and she comes to rescue him from his binds. Without the ability to relive the day, the two know that this is their last shot to save the world. They make a plan to get to Paris before Operation Downfall begins, but they're not going to be able to do it alone. Cage tries to talk the J Squad into helping and going with them, but it isn't until they see Vertovsky that they agree to do so. On the way to Paris, Cage and Vertovsky explain how the mimics work and that the Omega is the top priority. They also say to leave the alphas be. If one of them dies, then the day gets reset. As soon as they get close to the Louvre, their ship is attacked, and the group is separated and many are killed. The remaining members of the J Squad sacrifice themselves to allow Cage and Vertovsky to get to the museum. Once they finally do get to the right place, only one mimic stands in the way of them killing the Omega. Vertovsky thanks Cage for getting her this far, hands him a belt of grenades, and kisses him before running off to lure the Alpha away. The Alpha kills Vertovsky and starts to chase after Cage. He leads it into a large pool of water that the Omega is inside. It mortally wounds him, but not before he activates and drops the belt of grenades on the Omega. The Omega is destroyed, and all the mimics nearby appear to be killed as well. As he sinks down towards the bottom of the pool, the water is mixed with the Omega's blood. Cage abruptly wakes up, not at Heathrow like every other time, but in the helicopter on his way to his first meeting with Brigham. He hears all the bells in the city ringing, and he watches as Brigham gives a press conference. He says that there was a large and mysterious energy surge at dawn in Paris, and that there has been no mimic activity since then. Cage goes to Heathrow to find that everyone in the J Squad is still alive. Next, he goes to find Vertovsky and learns that she is also still alive. He approaches her like an old friend, but she doesn't recognize him. All he can do is laugh in relief that the world is safe, and his comrades are alive. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.